It was a medical malpractice trial in the Bronx. The defense refused to settle until we put on every single one of our witnesses. You want to know what happened and why they did that? Come join me for a moment as I share with you some great information. Hi, I'm Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice and personal injury attorney practicing law in the state of New York. This was a medical malpractice case. We claimed that the doctor convinced my client to have a hysterectomy when in fact she never needed a hysterectomy. It was an unnecessary hysterectomy case. And now the defense refused to accept responsibility. They refused to acknowledge that the doctor did anything wrong at any time until we put on every single witness that we intended to show that we were more likely right than wrong. Every single expert, every single witness that we needed to show that we were more likely right than wrong, it was only then, until after we had rested our case, that the defense came to me and said, listen, we'd like to negotiate. But up until then, they refused to accept responsibility. They refused to offer a dime. So what was it at the end of the case that made them finally recognize that they needed to settle this case? Well, there are a couple of things going on. It was a very dynamic case. The first one was they recognized that we had sufficient information to get to the jury, to allow the jury to determine whether or not we had proven our case, that we were more likely right than wrong. And number two, they recognized that they didn't have an expert to come in to defend the case. That was a critical factor. And that everything that our medical expert was saying, our gynecology expert, was in fact consistent with what we had said throughout the entire litigation. And despite the fact that they were bluffing that they had a medical expert to come in and support their claim, the reality was they didn't. And because of that, because they couldn't support the defense that they did nothing wrong, they had no choice but to settle the case. Another reason why I believe they decided to settle at that point was because they knew that since they didn't have a medical expert and we were in the Bronx, that they were worried about what the jury was ultimately going to do in terms of giving my client full and fair compensation for all of the harms and losses, the fact that the doctor took out her uterus when it never, ever should have been removed. And this was a young woman who wanted more children. You know, I realize you're watching this video because you have questions or concerns about your own particular matter. Well, if your matter did happen here in New York and you're thinking about bringing a lawsuit, but you have questions that need answers, what I invite you to do is pick up the phone and call me. I can answer your legal questions. You know, this is something I do every single day and I'd love to chat with you. You can reach me at 516-487-8207 or by email at Gerry, G-E-R-R-Y, at oginski-law.com. That's it for today's video. I'm Gerry Oginski. Have a wonderful day.